I watched this video by Marisa. She's called Marisa the other day, and I thought it was an interesting video. I really liked the title, right? Attracting females to my channel. So I wanted to replicate that, right? I wanted to replicate the attracting females to my channel and attract some females to my own channel. First of all, I'm going to talk about why the video, I guess, what the video is about, and then why I want to replicate it and how. And basically, in this video, she mentions how she was checking her YouTube statistics and so on, and she noticed that she has had a lot of guys coming to her channel lately, right? She has like 70% of her subscribers or something, or her new subscribers, I'm not sure, are guys, and how she was actually feeling kind of like bad about it, right? How she feels kind of like safer, and she wants more comfortable and so on in spaces where there are like more women. And she made this video kind of like to I guess do that. So that approach she chooses to do that is like doing girly activities, right? So in this video she says that it's more or less a joke, right? I don't think there are necessarily girly activities, blah blah, but she does like make her makeup, and she paints her nails, and she I think bakes a cake. So I thought that it was a funny video, right? I thought it was a funny concept, but I also thought that behind the funny title and I guess the comedy, the fun part of it, I did kind of like feel a little bit hurt about it, and also had kind of like some thoughts of her video itself. But at the same time, kind of like I really understood the video, I guess. I really understood the feeling behind the video, so I kind of like wanted to replicate it, right? And I wanted to literally make the same video because I actually want the same thing, right? Not necessarily the same thing, because she does have already an established audience and she wants to attract kind of like females to the channel or whatever. And I don't necessarily have a channel that can be considered anything, but I do share the feeling, so I wanted to kind of like make the same, literally the same video. So it's kind of like also subverting the concept, right? Maybe one could be like, okay, she's making a video to attract girls, and he's making the video because he wants to attract girls for himself. And I'm actually like, nope, I actually want literally the same thing, right? I kind of like want my video is coming from the exact same place, even if it comes from different origins, right? I actually also feel a similar way regarding her thing. So I'm actually going to also do some girly things in order to keep the girls in my channel. So I'm going to be filing and painting my nails, because makeup and so I'm really bad at makeup or something, if it can be considered a skill of mine, which not really. I know it really doesn't look like it, but I have been actually filing my nails a lot because I have made this video like 3 times already. This is the 3rd attempt, and yeah, basically the way I'm filing my nails I learned using AI, so that's kind of actually a pretty bad way for attracting females to the channel. But I did ask AI, hey, how does one file their nails? And apparently it's something like from end to tip. So that's kind of like the process that I'm doing, right? Trying to like shape them in a way that they are kind of like, I don't know, long, but not kind of like this awkward, super linear shape like this, and then like super perpendicular shape, rather a more kind of like, well, kind of like looking more like the actual file itself, a little bit more pointy, right? That's, I guess, the purpose of what I'm doing. And regarding talking like this, regarding the actual video herself that she made, right? I do relate, as I mentioned, to this messaging of attracting girls and kind of like feeling safer with girls. And I actually want to kind of like communicate the same message, right? I do also feel like I lack these kind of spaces where that hit different, right? It's different the way one is in like a majority female space, blah blah blah, versus in like all guys spaces, for example, that I've been a part of. And I kind of like miss the community girls have with each other, and that kind of sense of friendship that I have experienced not a lot of times in my life, but a couple of times, because as I mentioned in other editions of this video and in my channel, basically all my life I have been hanging out with guys, and my majority groups are with guys. For example, from high school, from college. My college was I studied mechanical engineering in college. Sorry for the focus, it's so difficult to focus correctly. And yeah, basically I studied mechanical engineering in college, and in my first year, for example, out of 60 students, there were like 6 women. So it's like, on the one hand, for example, there is no excuses. In sometimes, like in high school, I ended up with a group of guys, mainly probably because of just general vibes and so on, and like the way groups form, kind of like the way certain people click with other people. The people I ended up clicking with were just majority guys, and so that's how my friend group stayed. But then in college, I did have some legitimate excuses, like the activities that I did and the things that I studied weren't actually like, I don't know, triggers for a super a life a super balanced a super gender balanced life, or something, or however one wants to call that. But in Erasmus, I did have Erasmus is like some exchange program, by the way. I did have a couple of friend groups that were like a lot of where there were like a lot of girls, and in those groups I did kind of like find that the energy was different in a certain way. So, and I kind of like do miss that energy, and I do miss those friends in also in a way. And yeah, therefore I understand the video. But the part that I mentioned was kind of sad about the video, that yeah, that I guess I also wanted to touch on, was the fact that, sure, while I do get that feeling, right, of the way of wanting this space, right, of wanting this kind of community that is certainly different, I do find a certain paradox, right, which is like, as so like these messages are both at the same time present. If one guy doesn't find women's comedy funny and like really makes it known, which is kind of stupid, but still, it probably does happen, and the messaging that is sent to him is something like, you should listen to actual women comedians, you should listen to more women's comedy music instead of like your backwards misogynistic ways, right? And I do think that is fair argumentation and valid to a certain extent, right? But then if someone does actually do that, which I don't think is happening in the first place, but if one does actually do that, what does one encounter? This case, right? The fact that a women comedian who ends up getting a majority male audience doesn't actually like that, right? And actually, she feels safer when the audience is majority male, the majority female, right? So that's kind of like interesting to perceive, and it's kind of like a sad state of affairs, right? It is personally saddening, because, as I have mentioned, I am actually seeking these kind of spaces in the same way. So, kind of like feeling unwelcome in that sense is saddening. But also, I do feel like it is a sad state of affairs for herself in general as well, right? So yeah, I don't know. Recapitulating a little bit, it is kind of sad for me to encounter this kind of messaging, because it is a bit hope killing, you know? It's like you are hoping to find a space that welcomes you with a certain characteristic, and you kind of like get this sense of like, oh, actually the space intrinsically does not want me in it, right? Which is a sad realization. But at the same time, and when one is looking for this space out of scarcity, right? Oh, I actually kind of like have this really missing in my life, right? Then it's kind of like even sadder that this happens. So yeah, that is kind of sad. But in the same way, I also feel like she's kind of operating, or not necessarily, I don't want to also point to her necessarily super like, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily think that, right? It's more like but she is in the opportunity too. So in a sense, yeah, kind of like her, or this kind of like vibe is also something like, is it operating out of a sense of scarcity? Could she be operating as well as out of a sense of scarcity? I think it's different, right? Because, for example, in trying to look for these things online, for example, in some random YouTube channel, it's like, why the fuck do you care so much about a random YouTube channel posting this random video, right? And it's like, true, but also it's kind of like my cope, right? If your cope is like looking at YouTube videos or something, and your cope itself tells you, then you will be sad. Kind of like out in more proportion than one should be. But I think that maybe she's also operating out of a sense of scarcity, but a different kind of like a more layered, different kind of like sense of scarcity. For example, she's not necessarily super scarce, operating out of this sense of scarcity as like, yeah, I lack guy friends, or because she doesn't and she actually has like too many guys who watch her, or like she doesn't operate necessarily out of a scarcity of a friend group, right? She's not like, oh, I don't have girlfriends that I could tell it to. It's more of a scarcity of like she's been faced with this kind of like opportunity, could one call it, of, I don't know, I don't want to say solving gender wars or something like this, but it is kind of like she has been offered this kind of space that is half combative because of the haters that she comes in, which I don't necessarily approve. But the part that is not combative, right? The part of like these guys who follow her because they like to they like hearing her stories about dating. It's like, I feel like she has this kind of opportunity to, I don't know, to engage with that in a way that makes her comedy even like step up, right? That steps up her comedy in a way, right? And I feel like she's operating out of a sense of scarcity of like kind of like, oh, I need to go back to what it's known, right? I need to go back to making the jokes that I can make with my girlfriends instead of like making the jokes that work kind of like all around, or I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I feel that's kind of like the vibe of the things that I'm feeling. I don't know. I think it's not completely the same because I have mentioned a lot about my, I don't know, my scarcity, etc. And my scarcity does come from a different place, right? My scarcity is like actual lack of something, and the replacement is actually not the real thing, right? It's not having like a real friend group, blah blah blah, right? It's more like being on a YouTube, watching some YouTube channel or whatever, right? Or if the claim of this video were to be correct, kind of like receiving some kind of like parasocial attention, which I don't think is actually going to happen, but still, if it were to happen, which I don't know, which I don't know how I would actually react to, which would be interesting, but yeah, in that sense, it's kind of like this actual lack, this actual scarcity, etc. I am basically telling her, hey, you should grow, you should be so, you should rise to the circumstances, blah blah, while telling her, and for that you need to make me not rise to my own circumstances, which feels like a little bit of a dumb message, or perhaps. But I don't know. I think it's also not exactly like this, right? I think it's also like, hey, I am actually, in the sense that I am seeking these spaces, even if fake, or not fake, but like ersatz, replacement, substitute spaces compared to the real thing. Even if so, I am actually going out there seeking these kind of spaces and seeking, okay, actually listening to what women comedians have to say and how women comedians are actually making things funny, blah blah, right? And kind of like going a little bit out of my way, out of like what a predetermined path wants to put in front of me. Therefore, I do think that she actually should also do kind of like the opposite of what the predefined path puts in front of her, right? The predefined path would kind of like, that's, it puts in front of her something like retreat to your girlfriend groups and retreat to the kind of like this kind of sexual activity, right? I feel like the pushes are different, right? The pushes are kind of different. And I feel like we are kind of like increasingly each gender is being kind of like pushed towards interacting only with themselves, right? It's like if you're a man, you should like watch manosphere podcasts and like love, or I don't know, not necessarily love and debate or whatever, right? But it's like you should listen to manosphere podcasts, and if you listen to one manosphere podcast, you will get like only manosphere podcasts, and you should like grind and hustle, blah 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 blah, blah, right? And if you're a woman, no, if you're a woman, you must listen to podcasts that only have like two women in it, and where they talk about how, I don't know, whatever, right? Or if you're a woman and you like comedy, you should like listening to female comedians who talk only to other women. And if you're a guy, you should only listen to male comedians who only talk to other men, or some or something like that, right? And who only make jokes for other men. And I feel like that's the opposite vibe that I want in the world. So that's kind of like what I want, what I feel like that leads to, and what I'm also trying myself to get away from. So I have already used this fucking product, my nails. I forgot the name in English. And acetone, I think it's just that. Before, and I'm not going to show them super long because they're awful and I'm not good at this, but I'm going to use this Couture Sheer Fantasy called Sheer Fantasy by Essie, number 10. And the top coat, this is just like the normal top coat by Essie as well. And yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I have a couple of points, I guess, that I want to make. And, well, not sure if make, but to clarify that I guess I don't care if people are like, yeah, at the end of the day, what do you care? It's like, we don't give a fuck about what you think, or like, you said it yourself, like, you want these spaces to be like this. And it's like, you also feel like you lack women's spaces. You know what we're talking about, right? And it's like, sure, but yeah, I'm actually not like against any of that or something like this, right? I was just saying what this made me feel like, and I actually, and but that I do feel like there is this sense of opportunity that is kind of like missing or something like this. Whoa, that's like too much. I'm not good at this, by the way, and I'm also distracted. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't like this channel or like you don't feel unwelcome, then just like leave, right? And I'm like, sure. And if it's either leave or like grow thicker skin, and I will do that or that, right? I will keep going there until like the algorithm says that I don't, that I can't, or until the content starts getting like way too uninteresting or something, which, to be fair, I don't think it will happen. And yeah, I don't know. That is not like the reason why I made the video in itself, right? The reason why I made the video is the wider point, and I still think it's like worth talking about, right? It's worth talking about the fact that maybe we should actually like kind of try to find these things to fight for, or like to, yeah, when we encounter these situations, that we can rise to the situation, right? We can find a solution and so on, right? I'm not demanding anything. I don't want to seem like entitled, and yeah, I'm just like old. I'm getting older, not old, but I'm getting kind of older, and therefore I give like less of a fuck of whether this video is kind of like a ridiculous opinion or something. I guess it is kind of like a ridiculous video and a ridiculous opinion, but it's like, well, I don't care, right? I'm cringe I'm just going to be cringe, and I'm not trying to do it in an offensive way or anything like this. I just thought it was like an interesting concept that I wanted to make in a video. And yeah, I didn't want to project too hard. Maybe it's like, maybe she is actually not speaking out of scarcity at all. Maybe she's actually like fully content on what she has, and she actually has an abundance of guys that she's like trying to date with or something like this, and like there's actually too much for him. Like she's like had the exact opposite problem that I had, right? And that could be this case, right? I could be like looking at it from an entirely different angle, that it's not true. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought that it could be like a different. Yeah, I thought it could be an interesting perspective. I thought it was like worth thinking about. It's maybe worth kind of like seeing this fact as an opportunity, right? Maybe it's like, unlike my case where it's like truly out of scarcity and imbalance, in her case, like it seems like pursuing this path of like, in my case, I'm trying to solve the imbalance that there exists, and in her case, I feel like she's kind of trying to make the imbalance even higher. You know what I mean? In her life, she's already like surrounded by these parts, and in the online life, like it's like she's trying to actually solve the imbalance in real life by actually getting a boyfriend or whatever and dating. And in that case, I have like immense respect, and I'm going to be following her journey because of that, right? I don't want to say that I dislike her channel anymore or whatever, right? The opposite. I even found the video funny, and I watched it all. I'm like, it's what made me think about, right? And I think, yeah, it's kind of like worth thinking about it in that way. Maybe it's worth seeing it as this blessing in disguise, or looking at it as an opportunity to grow out of kind of like your comfort zone, despite how cliche it may sound or whatever. Right? I feel like when you get old, you don't mind saying cliches, right? That's like the good thing about it. I'm not old. I don't want to claim that I'm actually old, but I'm actually kind of like approaching 30, right? And she's like, I think 24. So I have like 5 years on her of like doubts uh, and so on. So I feel like, maybe this is like my perspective. Maybe this is like what I can give. So yeah. Yeah. Now it's time for the top coat. I think I timed it correctly. The timing was given by ChatGPT as well, but it's now from memory out of what ChatGPT said, so it could be like doubly wrong. And I don't know, if I feel like the fact that I'm talking too much about ChatGPT is kind of like a show of the point of this video, right? If some I find the wording so funny. But if some females end up in my channel because the YouTube algorithm did wonders this time, I feel like they will be like, yo, we actually need to be here expeditiously, like this person needs help. By the way, in case you want to know why I chose the color, it's because it's subtle. I don't really love the French manicure thing, so I wanted something. Ideally, I would like something more solid, right? But I also feel like I like the French manicure look when it's like more purpose. It feels more purposeful. But I also feel like I don't want to catch too much attention, right? I don't want to feel like this performative guy who has like nails painted or something, right? I wanted just some kind of like ritual for sometimes, I don't know, for it to feel kind of like nice, to take care of oneself, to kind of like groom oneself a little bit more, and yeah, to have a certain look that it's a little bit softer and so on, but without being like, I don't know, without being either emo with like dark nails or something like this, right? I don't know. I wanted to stay away from as many things possible, of like, yeah, stay away from signaling things the most I can, and just do something a little bit for myself. Yeah, so this sheer fantasy color, I think it's called sheer fantasy precisely because it's kind of like pretty sheer, right? So it's kind of like transparent, and it's kind of like not difficult to see, right? But it's kind of like subtler as, for example, an actual matte pink, well, not necessarily matte, but an actual like full opacity pink, or for example, or something like this. But I don't know, as I said, I have no idea, so tell me if I'm doing anything wrong or whatever. How do they look? They're not dry yet, but I still need to paint my right hand, but I'm going to finish the video right now. I feel like I don't have anything more to say about this topic, but I just wanted to, I guess, close out this video with a joke that I thought while making the video, right? Sorry, while watching the previous video about making this video, and I was like, if a girl is actually attracted, a female is actually attracted to this channel, what would a female like from this channel? And I thought the only video that I know for sure that a female has watched has been this video called Thinking About the Sims Relationship Icon. And coincidentally, it's not about the Sims, but it has Sims on the title, and girls love the Sims, right? So definitely do not watch that video, because it's actually a video from 3 years ago. It's embarrassing for me and all that, but it will be the end card at the end of this video. And with that, I wanted to close out because the rest of the videos that I do, the videos I've been doing lately are kind of like just status updates, and yeah. But yeah, I have a lot of videos. If you're bored, there's definitely something to click on, and minutes will go by. I can't promise anything good, but that is what is going on here, and yeah. Thank you for watching, and if you're a female and were attracted to this video, whoa, color me surprised. If you're a male watching this, you are not unwelcome by definition, or something like this. But the video didn't work, and my clever idea was not executed well enough, and yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.